Good morning. Welcome. It's June 24th, Sunday, June 24th. This is Tucson New Thought. It's our virtual celebration. A lot of times what I've done, just so we're totally clear on what's happening today, because you'll see I'm not in a park today. We're literally live, so if you wanted to post something in the comments, I can do a shout out. I want to say hello to Marvis, who I see is watching live. But here's what happened. So typically on a Sunday morning, I get up at about 4:30 in the morning and I get myself prepared and I get my camera out and I get all my equipment out and I go to a park and I shoot whatever I want to shoot. And then I come home and I put it all together and I put it up on Facebook as a live broadcast. We call that live to tape, right? As a live broadcast every Sunday morning. So I did all of that. This morning. I was out at Himmel Park. I'm just going to show you a little bit here. I was out at Himmel Park this morning. I shot the whole thing, and it was a beautiful, shot for me. And I was talking about why I was at Himmel Park today, which I'm going to tell you in just a second. But I had no sound when I got home and was starting to put it all together. I had absolutely no sound. And what I realized is that the microphone that I tended to use actually was hanging down by my ankles and was picking up just the rustling of the grass. So what do? I didn't have time to reshoot it. So I decided, heck, I'm just going to go live today, like live for real live. So welcome. I'm so grateful that you've joined this morning and grateful to have you visiting Tucson New Thought in our live virtual Sunday celebration. So the reason that I was at Himmel Park this morning was because 27 years ago, yesterday, June 24th, 1991, no, June 23rd, 1991, was the day that I usually refer to as my coming out. Is when I came out as a gay man. And that was the very first gay pride event that I ever attended, was at that particular spot where I was standing in the video that you saw here. I'll show you again. Right there on that hill back there is where I was experiencing my first gay pride celebration. See, I pointed to it because I was talking about it in that. And I just felt that it was appropriate. So many communities are celebrating pride right now. All over the world. Tucson has moved its Pride celebration now so that it happens in October, which I think is a more reasonable time of year for Tucson because it's far too hot if it's happening in June, I can tell you. So here we are live. You may hear my cats, you may hear the cicadas outside, but let's just take a breath and let's get going. Relaxing ourselves right here and right now into a centered moment. At every moment, we have an opportunity to center ourselves and come back to that place of understanding that there's only one thing going on, and that is love. This infinite creative resource from which all things are expressed. It's fully present right here and right now, and it is fully present by means of you. It is fully present by means of me. It is fully present by means of this entire experience. Everything that exists is a part of this infinite wholeness. So let's allow ourselves to simply settle into that idea. Breathing. And simply allowing as we begin to let the day unfold. Just want to remind you, if you want to make some comments in the comment field there, I am literally coming to you live, so I will be able to respond to them. But right now, why don't we toss it over to Via Dia, Olivia Avanzado, and Nadia Stefanik, who have provided us with a spectacular song in support of today's theme. Here we go.
Wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mama. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to the things that will bring you trauma. Madness is what you demonstrate. at the border, government order, but with darkness comes the light as we stand up and unite. So practice what we preach, practice what we teach, cause being love, being kind is our time. Being love, being kind is our time, it's our time, it's time to shine. So ask yourself, how can I be the love? I'm gonna ask myself, how can I be the love? Ask yourself, how can I be the love? Here we go. People loving, people shining, come together when we hear them crying. We can practice what we preach, we can practice what we teach. God within us, God around us, and some guidance and some love. Cause the answer to the question is, we are the love, we are the love, we are the love, we are the love, the love. People loving, people shining, come together when you hear them cry. We can practice what we preach, we can practice what we teach. God within us, God around us, and some guidance and some love. Cause the answer to the question is, we are the love, we are the love, we are the love, we are the love, the love, the love.
We are the love. What a great song. So I had this funny moment when they sent me the video of the song. I had to ask them who the original artist of that song was. It's the Black Eyed Peas, and I wrote back. I said, I guess I should probably get myself more in alignment with contemporary music, because it is a great song. I love also they modified the lyric a little bit there to answer the question. You know, the question posed is, where is the love? And they answer it. We are the love. And that's an important distinction to really, really live in and resonate with. So today what I wanted to talk about is practice. I call today's message The Practice. And we'll get to how that came to be, because ultimately I was faced with really having to delve deep into my practice this week. In particular, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of negativity going on in the world. There's a lot that we see in the news that is challenging, frankly. And where we can resonate and make change is in our own spiritual practice. And when we're really in it, when we're truly in it, when we commit to it, that's what really changes the world. And so I want to start by telling you a little bit about something that happened to me this week. And it's not related to the immigration issues, although I will mention that a little bit later. One of the things that happened to me personally this week was I found myself at a moment to be out of integrity. So what is integrity? Well, the definition of integrity is wholeness, right? It's to be whole. To be in integrity is to be whole. And when we are in integrity, then everything that we are experiencing, everything we say, everything we do is coming from that point of view and from that expression and experience of wholeness. One of the great definitions of integrity, to be in integrity, that I have heard in my life is this. When we are in integrity, we do what we say we are going to do. That is, when we make a commitment, to be true to our commitment is to be in integrity. That is being whole. And the reason that I bring this up is because I had a challenge this week where I had made a commitment. I was gung-ho, I was ready to go. And then because of circumstances, I was not able to see that commitment through. And what happened was it was unexpected. It was something that really shook me, because I am someone who really, really, truly believes in that definition of integrity, to do what you say you're going to do. And when I was outside of my own self-perception, get that? When I was outside of my own self-perception of what that was, it threw me for a loop. I went into guilt. I went into shame, and I began to spiral down in that emotional state. And really, really started to beat myself up for not doing what I said I was going to do. So I was out of integrity in that moment. How do I realign myself? How do I get back to that place of integrity? Well, first of all, because my integrity is based on my own self-perception, well, then the work that has to be done ultimately is in my mind. The person that I was supposed to have helped out, that I did not show up for, I contacted them and we had discussion. And here's the deal. They were fine. Like, they literally were like, yeah, it's not a big deal. Whatever. It's all worked out. Everything's fine. We worked out whatever we needed to work out. And so in a way that was like, oh, well, it alleviates me. But here's the thing that I also had to cop to. It is not the responsibility of that other person to make me feel better about me not having done what I need to do. Everything that we experience is an inside job. Every feeling we want to have is an inside job. And so to be in integrity ultimately meant that I had to be okay with not blaming myself or going down that shame spiral or living in a place of guilt around what had not happened. What I was able to do was to step into spiritual practice, recognize that in the moment, all I could do was look forward. All I could do is move forward. All I could do is allow myself to be in the present moment and know that all that unfolded from that moment forth was perfect. Who knows why the circumstances of life got in the way of me being able to do what I said I was going to do? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that I was able to pull it back and be in integrity in my own mind. The other thing that came up for me in this was to not put my feelings of guilt or shame on the other person for them to own. It's not for that other person to own. It's for me to own and for me to do something about it. So as I moved through this experience, I started to think about, well, what is it, this thing called practice, this thing called spiritual practice? It's really about coming to that place of center at all times in every situation. And we have particular tools that we rely on to do that. At least we teach particular tools within the New Thought tradition, within religious science, to really come to that place of spiritual practice. So, what I want to offer this quote of Ralph Waldo Emerson. He wrote this: "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. That begs the question, who are we? Who are we? Are we who we think we are? Well, at the end of the day, that's exactly who we are. So if we're thinking positive thoughts, we're going to have a positive experience. We're going to show up as positivity. If we're thinking negative thoughts, then we're going to have negative experiences and show up as negativity. It's all up to us. And it is only our approach that allows us to make shift in the world. It doesn't matter what's going on all around us. I see things happening all around. I see people who are acting, frankly, out of integrity with what I think the most valuable form of integrity is, which is this: to always approach life from love and kindness. I see people all around not living up to that standard, but I don't need to worry about them living up to that standard. I only need to worry about me living up to that standard. So how do I live up to that standard? Ultimately, practice. That's it. I have to keep in practice. How do we know who we are? Through spiritual practice. Through the active engagement of spiritual practice, we come to know, we begin to really know who we are. That's 99% of what we're here to do. That's 99% of what I'm here to do as a New Thought minister, is to stand up as an example of this world of someone who has committed themselves to spiritual practice and encourage others through that example to do the same in their own lives, because I know that it has worked for me. And ultimately, it doesn't even matter what the form of the spiritual practice is. What matters to me is that we all find what works for us. Now, we have many different versions of spiritual practice that we utilize and teach within the New Thought faith, within the New Thought tradition. The first one I want to talk about is meditation. Oh, meditation. Meditation is hard, isn't it? Well, that's what I hear a lot. I hear so frequently from people that say, I just can't meditate. I can't get myself to there and where I'm going to clear my mind out, right? I just can't do it. Well, here's the trick. It's not even a trick. Meditation isn't about clearing your mind of anything, although that is one form of a meditative practice, that desire to let the mind be cleared. I think the best form of meditation that I have ever practiced is simply sitting and focusing solely on the breath. Allowing and recognizing the easeful in and out of the breath. Already, just in that moment, I've come to a centered, more centered, relaxed space. And that's the whole point of meditation, to allow us to return to the one, return back to that place of center, to align our mind with the infinite, with the universal, and let that be the point of view from which all things that follow unfold. I've also heard people say, it's that whole thing about, I can't because I can't clear the mind. If you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner when you're in meditation, just allow the thought. Here's the thing. If I say, don't think that, well, what are you going to think? You're going to think that. So just allow the thought. Allow it to come, allow it to do its thing, and allow it to move on. Meditation is a lot easier than you think. That's really the truth. But committing to the practice of meditation will change. It lowers blood pressure. It puts us in a more parasympathetic state so that we are not always allowing those stressors of life to be at the forefront of our decision-making and our activity in the world. Meditation for me is one of the most important practices I ever took up. Another important practice that I want to talk about is affirmations. Affirmations are all about feeling, all about the emotional expression of the feeling that we have within. And we get to set the tone of that feeling through the words we use and our conviction to those words. So affirmations are positive statements in the first person. That's it. Here are some. I am happy. That's an affirmation. I am joyful. That's an affirmation. I am abundant. I am wealthy beyond compare. That's an affirmation. And what happens is as we state these things out loud from a place where we are thoroughly invested in our conviction, then the affirmations begin to take form in our lives. Now, there are people who will state out affirmations and they hear that niggling little thought in the back of their head. They hear that voice, right? I think we've all heard that voice. If I say something like, I am wealthy, there's that little thought in the back of my head that may say, no, you're not. Have you looked at your checking account lately? That voice is a core belief that we need to use the affirmations to begin to diminish. As we state the affirmation, we begin to diminish that core belief. And when we state, I am wealthy, the only thing that comes up in mind is, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Another great practice, another great spiritual practice is sacred service. In Sanskrit, there's a word for this, seva, which is service from the heart, giving from and of the heart. Without any desire for return, we just give of ourselves in service to the greatest good for all humanity. And this can be done through volunteering. This can be done in any number of ways. But it is a magnificent spiritual practice that, again, is rooted in the idea that as we give of ourselves, we are rewiring our brain to be more accepting and more giving automatically, so that it is second nature to us. It is not something that we feel is a burden in any way. And when we're doing it with love, from kindness, how could it ever be a burden? Another great spiritual practice, and there are various methods for this that people use, is gratitude. The practice of gratitude. Ernest Holmes wrote in The Science of Mind the book, he wrote, "An attitude of gratitude is most salutary and bespeaks the realization that we are now in heaven. Heaven is not some place we're trying to get to. When we live in gratitude, we're living the experience of heaven right here and right now." So gratitude practices can be anything from keeping a gratitude journal, allowing yourself to, before you go to bed at night, have a journal right on your nightstand and write out all the things for which you are grateful. Allow yourself to do that every single day. See what happens. Another practice that I really believe in is forgiveness. Forgiveness. I like to break down that word, forgiveness, and say that forgiveness is not about what we are getting in any way. It's about what we are giving. It is for giving. And ultimately what we are forgiving is love. We are giving of ourselves love when we are in the act of forgiveness. When we feel we've been wronged, when we feel we have been wronged, forgiveness is the key to change. And it's not about the behavior of anyone else. It is all about the way we step into giving of ourselves. That's the truth. Forgiveness. Give of love from love. Speaking of giving, the active giving and receiving is also a spiritual practice. The act of giving and receiving is also a spiritual practice. When I give of my time, my talent, and my treasure, I am keeping open the flow and circulation of life. And in return, I must be open to receiving it back. See, the thing is, all of life is a flow. When we want more of the flow, we have to be willing to give more. See how that works? Because any place where we stop the flow, it's a kink in the hose of the circulation. We stop it in both directions. If we stop giving, we stop receiving. If we stop receiving, we stop giving. Mostly those things are born out of fear. When we eliminate the fear through the activity of giving and receiving, that changes everything. Again, it all roots back to love. How am I going to be more loving and more kind as a presence in this world? And then the major spiritual practice that we teach within religious science and New Thought philosophies is what we call spiritual mind treatment. And that's basically a jargon phrase for affirmative prayer. Now, prayer, many people will think of as a beseeching to some God outside the self for something. And that's not what we're talking about when we talk about spiritual mind treatment. Spiritual mind treatment, or affirmative prayer, is this: recognizing that we get to stake our claim because we know who we are. Remember I said that earlier? Knowing who we are. We are the very presence of God in manifest form. We are that which is. We are God. We are love. We are infinite spirit, living its life as our own. Spiritual mind treatment is a structured form of affirmative prayer that ensures that when we are living in the feeling of that prayer, that what must happen is the prayer, what we're praying for, must come to be. Because we're not praying to God, we're praying as God. So, those are the spiritual practices. Those are the major spiritual practices we teach in religious science in this particular movement. But you may have your own. And the thing is to really look to see what is your spiritual practice. How are you spiritually nourishing yourself so that you can be the best you can be, so that you can be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else? At the root of all of it is their love. Is there love? As I've experienced and seen what's happening in the world with respect to what's happening in this country on our southern border, and the separating of families, and now the detention of families, and what feels to me to be a misuse of power. That's what it feels like to me. All I know is that I can act from a place of love and heal it. I must first heal it in my own heart before I can heal it anywhere else. And when I am in spiritual practice with the full understanding that I get to create, well, what happens is this. When I am surrounded and immersed in and as love, then I get to show up as that in everything I think, say, or do. It also means that I will be led into the right action. For there can be only right action when I'm firmly rooted in love. And so if you're feeling challenged by what's happening in the world, if you're feeling challenged by anything else in your life, return to love. Return to love. Return to love. That's ultimately what this is all about. A return to love. Namaste. So, in gratitude for your presence here today, in gratitude for your time spent with me today, live right here, actually live. I'm going to encourage you and invite you to give of yourself and give of your heart and give of your money to Tucson New Thought as we continue to grow and build and create community here. Yes, there were some things that happened. I talked about last week that the lease that I was about to sign fell through for ultimately good reason. And I was a little thrown by it last week, worked through it through spiritual practice. But what I have discovered is this. I get to make a decision around how I want to move forward. And my decision is this. We're going to meet on July 8th in person, someplace, somehow. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know where it's going to happen. It might happen here at my home. But I am working to ensure that we meet on July 8th so that we have a place to come together as a spiritual community and continue the work that we can do in this world as people in a room together. I love the virtual service. I love the virtual celebration. I love being able to put the word out there and have it watched by people all over the world. And people all over the world do watch. But I also really, really love being with people in a room. And so we're going to do that July 8th. The way that we are going to be able to do that is to ensure that we have the resources to allow that to happen. Money is a tool that we use. It's a resource that we use to ensure that that can happen. So I encourage you to make a contribution here today in support of Tucson New Thought. And allow yourself to give just because it feels good. You can click the link in the description field of the Facebook feed, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can click in the description field of YouTube, or you can click pretty much anywhere on our website if you're watching on our website. The other thing is we are still in the midst of our Startup Fund campaign. We have about $5,700 left to reach our goal of $10,000. And there's a link for the startup campaign as well. If you'd like to make a contribution specifically for that purpose, we'd love to have your support in that as well. I'd love to reach that goal by the end of the week so that we go into July firmly rooted in a solid foundation for our future. Thank you for giving. Thank you for giving and forgiving. Let's take a breath. Let's relax right where we are as we draw to a close this time we've chosen to be together today. I want to thank Olivia Avanzado and Nadia Stefanik for their beautiful song today. And I want to thank you for joining me here today. Let's close with a spiritual mind treatment. If it's comfortable and you want to close your eyes, please feel free to do so. I close my eyes because it allows me to turn that focus to that which is beyond form. And so, relaxing in the here and now, I recognize and know that there is only one power and one presence. There's only one infinite resource. There is only one thing going on. It is love. This infinite creative source is expressing itself in terms of creation by means of everything that exists. Everything seen, everything unseen is a part of this infinite whole. We are the very expression and life of this thing called love. We're living love's life as our own. We are living the infinite expression at the level of our understanding, at the level of our trust in it. And I know that we can accept more and more and more. And so we accept more and more and more. And through that accepting, we express more and more and more. I trust and know that each and every one of us is rooted firmly in spiritual practice, in some form of spiritual practice, in faith, to the flow of good in our lives. Trusting this and knowing this and allowing this, it is with a grateful heart that I simply say, it is so. I release this word, knowing that it is the law unto the expression of my life. I let it be so, as together we say, and so it is. I want to thank you all for joining me here this morning. I look forward to seeing you again as part of our virtual celebration next week. Keep an eye out as well for Wednesday's Word, which is a quick pick-me-up, usually a video no more than 5 minutes, every Wednesday posted right on Facebook Live, usually me sitting right in this chair. We have many ways that we're looking to expand our expression of spirit, and we look forward to being able to offer those more and more and more. I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great week. Namaste.